Join me on a barnstormer of a passage from Milford Haven in Wales to Peel in the Isle of Man. Trelene and I are getting ready to leave Milford Haven Marina, which is run by the Port Authority here. We are going to be heading up the Irish Sea, not tonight, but tomorrow morning. So first of all, we'll be pulling out of here to anchor just near the harbour entrance. Our ultimate destination will be likely to be Peel in the Isle of Man, which is really exciting because this boat is named Trelene, which is Manx for the Pleiades, the constellation known as Seven Sisters from antiquity. And Trelene was a boat that my relatives in the Isle of Man built for subsistence fishing, and so it would be amazing if it was possible to bring this Trelene, the second Trelene, back to her birthplace, so to speak. Milford Haven Marina is a locked facility run by the Port Authority inside the old fish basin. It has several hours of free flow, during which time both of the gates are left open, which means that it's much easier for me to leave because there's no extra mooring or unmooring involved. So I chose to disappear out of the marina at that point. Dusk was falling and we motored down the estuary west into the setting sun, the short distance to Dale. Dale Bay is an excellent anchorage, and I anchored on the edge of the flat because it shallows very rapidly, and although there were quite a few boats anchored further in, I actually wanted to be on the outside so that I could extract myself rapidly when the morning came. It's super early in the morning, as it often is when you're sailing, and it's still very dark outside, and I am just getting myself ready, and then I will get the boat ready for leaving Milford Haven and heading up the St George's Channel. This passage up the Irish Sea is a fairly long distance. It's going to be a couple of days, and as always with this sort of sailing, you don't really know what you're going to get until you are there. The weather forecasting has improved a huge amount, but the way the passage plays out is it's always a matter of what the sea and the weather will give you, and what the boat will do, and how I'm feeling. And so there's always a healthy dose, I think, of anticipation and respect as I prepare to shorten scope and then get ready to weigh anchor. We motored out into the pre-dawn light, taking the western exit from Milford Haven and then heading up towards the outside of Ramsey Island. It's entirely possible to go an inside route here, but because of the wind direction that was coming in later in the day, I wanted to be more out into the St George's Channel than inshore into Cardigan Bay, and so we headed out that way following the ferry track. It's also less work and involves less navigational precision, which is, in my view, often a good thing. As we motored clear, the sails came up, and soon enough we were under full sail and heading north. Trelene is clear of Milford Haven, and we are sailing in the first patch of wind for this passage. We are currently reaching up towards South Bishop, which is the western edge of Ramsey Island, and from there we will turn slightly to starboard, and that will bring us onto the Rum line, or straight line on the Mercator chart all the way to the Isle of Man. At some point this evening we're likely to lose this wind, and so we'll motor for a bit and then we'll pick up a stronger blow which will carry us the last of the way to the island. Trelene is starting to get herself into a stride. The wind is pretty stable at maybe 10 to 15 knots. We're under full sail, and I'm just starting to think about getting into the passage routine, which is the way that I preserve my myself. It's the way I preserve myself from getting fatigued, and that is actually, now we're doing this, the only things I'm allowing myself to do are sail the boat, navigate the boat, and look after myself. So as much as possible, even on a beautiful day like this, I want to be resting, because I don't know when I'll next get the rest, and also I don't know how the rest of the passage will turn out. Really, you can't know. And so the worst thing I can do in my experience is get really tired early on in the passage, because then it all gets very complicated later. You're back with me now, crossing Cardigan Bay, south end of Cardigan Bay, heading up now on the rum line to the Isle of Man. It's a gorgeous day. The boat is doing about 4.5 knots, and we've got maybe a knot and a half of tide underneath us, so we're actually making remarkably good progress at the moment. Obviously that will stop at some point when the tide turns, and also the wind will stop at some point as it comes into the stronger element, and probably the prettiness will fade away at that point and it will become a bit more of a serious sail. But just right now it's one of those sails that you don't get very often, actually, especially not in the UK, where it's late in the year, it's not hot, but the wind is gentle and the sky is blue, and it's remarkably lovely actually out here. The traffic situation is quite busy. We've got about 5 merchant ships within 10 nautical miles of us, which in my book counts as busy. So some of them are coming out of the Smalls traffic separation scheme, some of them are coming across from Ireland, and there's a ferry doing that, and there's a small bulk carrier which is just running north, some way north and west of us. So none of them are immediately threatening, but they're very much something I'm keeping an eye on. Good morning from Sailing Traleen. It is the 26th, so midnight has just come and gone, and we are now charging forwards at about 5 knots, which is a great relief after the last couple of hours where there's been no wind. We are sailing under a vast dome of stars. It is amazing to be out there right now, and this is why I do it, really. The stars are hanging like a curtain. I can't explain it, and unfortunately the camera won't capture it. Dawn has broken and Traleen is still trucking very slightly east of north up the Irish Sea towards the Isle of Man. Night was not too bad. We had to sequentially reef down 2 reefs as the expected strength in the wind came in, and also had to faff around with the sail steering for several hours as the wind turned, but that was also expected. And we are now in seas that are about 1 metre, 1.5 metres, and the boat's very comfortable. I've got quite a lot of rest over the night, and the tide is now slackening again against us, so we should start making really quite good progress shortly, I would think. And we have about 48 nautical miles to run to the waypoints at the Calf of Man, which is at the bottom of the Isle of Man, and from there it's about 15 miles into Peel. So yeah, so we're still a good long day sail away. We are just abeam of Holyhead, the port at the top of North Wales, and I've just shaken out a reef and Trelline is now stonking along at somewhere between 4.5 and 5 knots, and the tide is about to turn under us, to be fair. So things are going well this morning. I've had a cup of tea, all is good. We've still got pretty fair weather actually, which is not entirely what I was expecting. So at some point today it will strengthen up quite a lot, and that may or may not be before or after we get to the Isle of Man. It's quite unreasonably beautiful out here. I'm sorry about the noise on the mic. I really need to do something about the mics on this, but it's quite unreasonably beautiful given the forecast. We've got an absolutely clear sky and a flat sea and just enough wind to drive the boat along at about 4.5 knots, and we're on track about 30 miles south of the Isle of Man. We can't quite see the mountains yet, but there is a heap of cloud piling up approximately where the island should be, which is often a sign that you are coming close to a landfall. We closed in onto the south end of the Isle of Man, first picking up the central hills and then the lighthouse at the Calf of Man. It's easy to think when you're approaching an island as high as the Isle of Man that you are closer than you actually are, because you pick up the high central hills first, and then only later does the coastal geography become clear. As soon as we paralleled the Calf of Man, it was possible to see into Port Erin, which is a very possible first stop coming from the south, but for us it was time to continue up the west coast, closing onto Peel Hill with the folly or memorial to the Corrin family. Just got into Peel. We're now hanging on a buoy in the harbour mouth, just inside the breakwater, so we should be well sheltered when the front does eventually eventuate. Good morning. It's a grey and windy day here on a mooring at Peel Harbour, and very shortly I am about to get the boat underway and head into the marina. I didn't go in last night because Peel Harbour has a large drying section, and the marina is behind a flap gate, which is a sort of lock thing, but all it does is impound the water and it doesn't permit vessels to pass through it. There's no point in having a lock here because the extent of the drying in the harbour is such that you'd lock out onto a mud bank. That's all for this week. In the next video we flee Peel because a storm is coming, and we head up to Ballycastle where we weather out Storm Amy. And yes, I am sorry this video is a little bit behind.